Fletcher. Now sit back and prepare to be entertained. Welcome to the Dripping Bucket Podcast, which is not Warriors, Wizards, and Words, and I have to remember that because that was a couple of years ago now, and I should actually move on. Things end, even if you don't like the fact that they ended, and it's totally Jed's fault. But I'm okay. I'm not fucking torn up about it. I'm not angry. It's okay. No big deal.
One day you're going to have to introduce this as Wizard Warriors and Words and not say a thing about it. And then
I probably will. It'll just slip out. Anyway, today... your hosts, as always, are Krystle Matar and Michael R Fletcher, me. And we are joined once again by Clayton W. Snyder. That guy.
Fantasy writer extraordinaire. General, all around, excessively supportive human being.
Wait, I'm supportive?
Yes, you are. Shut up and take it. Yeah. Yeah, and we talk about books, and the longer we sit here talking, the more ridiculous we get, so this should be a good episode.
Yeah, so this week, on whatever this podcast is called, so we're going to talk about what we're currently reading or have recently read, how it impacts us, how writing has impacted our reading, and kind of wherever the fuck we end up going.
Yeah. Yeah, so, I suspect this one will be more chaotic. This is going to be the crowning achievement for us.
Oh, yeah. Clayton, what are you up to? What are you reading these days?
I am reading one of your books.
Wait, didn't even have to pay him for that.
I swear you're fighting with Stephen King for most prolific author. I just started Sin and Sorrow, which I think is, the third book in City of Sacrifice?
Yep.
So, literally just started
that you wrote.
Read the first paragraph and fell asleep last night, which is not.
It's a really good paragraph. What you're saying? Oh Jesus!
Which is not a commentary on your writing, which is exhausting.
It absolutely is.
So,
yeah.
Before that, I had read In the Shadow of Their Dying, which was also by you and Anna Smith Spark. And before that, I was reading Neuromancer. So, a little bit of everything.
How's Neuromancer hold up? I haven't read that in decades.
It's solid. Really prescient as far as like technology and culture. You know, as far as what we name things, as far as our idea of what cyberpunk is. It's still it's older, but it still feels very familiar. It's very strange.
Who's the writer on that one?
William Gibson.
Oh, what? Okay. You haven't read Neuromancer and you don't know what? Oh my God, child, it's unacceptable.
Yeah. When was it published? Was it published before I was born, or?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, early 90s, right?
No, that was. I existed.
I don't know if it was the 90s. I want to say.
Oh, are we gonna have to look it up?
Yeah, you probably have to look it up.
I'm gonna look it up because
I want to say
if it's older than me, I want to make fun of Fletcher.
So, Neuromancer, amazing book. Do you think that's going to impact whatever you're working on next? Do you sort of see that as you think some of that flavor is going to sneak in there, or give some prose?
Not so much as prose, but the way he just effortlessly comes up with words and ideas and just throws them into the book like they're a natural part of the language. You know, nobody would have thought of cyberdeck as a normal word, and yet there it is. You know, cyberspace. There it is. So, any of those things. Flechette gun. Hey, it's there. he and it's just natural. It's just part of the flow. He just assumes that the reader is going to know what he's talking about. He doesn't take his audience's intelligence for granted. So,
And
and I
so,
think,
as an effect, you probably feel more like you know what's going on, where, like, if he stops to explain it to you,
Yeah,
it breaks the magic a little bit.
Yeah, so many writers, so many new writers do that. That's something I see all the time. Is like and he pulled out a cyber deck. A cyber deck is a this, and it does this, and they're useful for that. Anyway, on with the story. It's like, please don't.
Yeah,
Yep.
it shatters the illusion that this exists and this is a story. Which, by the way, it was published in 1984. So yes, it is older
84?
than me.
It's okay.
But it was only a couple of years ago.
That's how you know you're old now, bud.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing he does is it isn't just that he takes those words and inserts them into the flow of the language. It's that he uses them in context. There's context for everything.
Yeah,
like Mike was saying, it's not that he throws a definition after them. It's that, she pointed the flechette gun at him, and you know instantly that you don't know what a flechette is, but the fact that it's a gun, it's going to suck you a shot with. There's that context there, and he does the same thing with all the things that he's invented, which makes it so much easier to kind of understand and just read, So that's always what I kind of aim for with what I'm writing, is that's how it affects when I sit down and write myself, is if I'm inventing something or if I'm bringing something into my world, how do I integrate that in a way that is easily understandable and doesn't interrupt the flow of the language. So
I'm guessing Neuromancer was a reread for you, right?
No, first time.
First time?
Yeah.
Okay, we're not talking anymore.
I had read right. And I work in IT. So I had read Snow Crash ages ago, which I love. And
I was going to smoothly segue that into talking about comfort reads and stuff, because my assumption was it was a reread, and I wanted to ask about going back to the classics and what sort of triggered that and what are your comfort reads. But no, you totally fucked that.
Way to go, Clayton. Shattering all of his hopes and dreams. So what are you reading, Michael? Is it comfort?
What the fuck am I reading? So I have been reading Killing Floor by Lee Child for about 3 weeks now, because I just don't have much reading time. And it was mid-90s, I think, actually, in 94, if I remember correctly. And it's kind of painful. Passive language. Some of it's really good. There are great moments and there's some great lines in there. But it's interspersed with, the porch was painted purple. The sky was cloudy. It was raining. It just was. Anyway, painful. But I kind of want to look for a comfort read next. There, fucking, I got my segue.
Yeah, there you go. You did it.
And I'm thinking about maybe Ian Banks revisiting one of the old culture novels.
Yeah, you guys keep throwing references at me that I'm missing. Sorry.
And you, Krystle, what are you reading these days?
So I'm into the. It's not exactly a comfort read because Dennis Lehane's writing is deeply uncomfortable, which probably primed me to enjoy you guys quite a lot. But it's comforting in that I like it. And so Dennis Lehane is a thriller, mystery, historical fiction writer. And he was like the formative writer that I read when I wasn't reading fantasy. And he really informed a darkness that I enjoyed that wasn't super present in fantasy at the time, because we were only just starting to slide into those morally gray characters. But Dennis Lehane was there. He writes Boston crime thrillers, and so I recently reread two of his books that are more historical about the Prohibition and kind of gangster. Oh, Logan, stop it! And I was so mad at them. I was so disappointed by how mediocre they were, and I say that from a place of love. Like, I really adore this man's books, but those two were just they were constructed weird, and there's no discernible plot to them. Like, they read like kind of like an early version of one of my novels. Sorry, Michael. So I had to go back and pick up a book of his that I knew I loved, just to remind myself that actually no, this works for me. And so that book is Mystic River, which is widely regarded as one of his best. It's a Clint Eastwood movie as well, with Sean Penn, I think, as the lead. And man, it's not a comfort read because it's so good that it makes me angry. Do you know what I mean? And I don't remember feeling this way about it the first time I read it, because it was probably before I took writing so seriously. Because it's just like the effortlessness with how he layers. Backstory isn't the right word. Like, he doesn't give these big elaborate flashbacks, but he just drip feeds you just enough information that anytime something big drops on your lap, you have exactly the right amount of stress because you know what's at stake. And the violence that he writes is very utilitarian in that, like, there's no flourishes to it. There's no he's not trying to be poetic, because you can tell he doesn't feel that violence is poetic. It's just reality, and he presents it to you in such a way that it's physically painful, and it's so good. It's so good, and I'm glad I decided to read it because
Sorry.
hi, Goldie. I'm glad I decided to read Logan. My God, okay, because I want to write like this. Like, this is as much as I love David Gemmell, I also want this in my writing. It's like, it's so painful, but also brief in a way that I've never mastered. And just, I feel like I can feel my relationship with this book changing, when before it was just surprising because it was good and I hadn't read him much before. But now, as a writer, I can see what he's doing, and I can see how intentional it is. And it's like, this book, from the first page, knows exactly what it's going to do to you. And it builds that tension deliberately, in a way that I can see now that I understand craft, that makes me jealous and angry.
Yeah.
Really deeply.
It's cool how writing your own stuff and getting deep into like the prose angle and the craft can simultaneously completely ruin books, and yet when you get a good one, you appreciate it all the more.
Yeah.
Where you're just like, how did they do this? Like, how did they tug that emotional string? How did they set that scene up? Like,
I find for me, it wasn't so much me writing, because I've been writing for so long. It was me beta reading that changed my ability to see stuff like that. Where it's like, I had to learn how to articulate how a book was making me feel and why it was making me feel that way, to offer the other writer the chance to either change it or double down, or clarify, or all of those things that we do as beta readers. And so now that I've come back to books as a reader, that knowledge is much more instinctual for me, or it's like, okay, this is hurting me because of all of these things that I know, and it's perfect. And so it's interesting that I think beta reading made me a bitchier reader, but also a better writer, in a way that I hadn't unlocked yet before I met Clayton. Sorry, Clayton.
No, that's fine.
Yes.
So Clayton, for you, how is sort of writing impacted your reading?
For the most part, I'm a lot pickier now. I still have my guilty pleasures. I still like pulp for the most part. Pulp is just fun.
Yeah.
But if it's a popular novel and people tell me that's brilliant, and it's genius, and I pick it up and it's garbage, and I can see it's garbage, I'm gonna get really pissed because I spent money on it. So it's worse if I'm in editing mode and I pick up a book and I see that it hasn't been edited very well because I'm editing. Boy, do I get
There's this resentment of like, why am I doing this to myself? This fucker got away with it.
Exactly. Yeah. There are books that have been published and won awards or just been out for years and years and have sold millions of copies. And I'll be in editing mode and I'll read them. I'll be like passive voice, passive voice, passive voice, passive voice.
I think that's kind of what you were talking about, Mike, with the Lee Child novel, where it's like you're too aware now of crap.
Yeah, I cannot turn off editor brain.
Yep.
Unless there's something else, some other magic happening in the story. And Killing Floor, it's on the edge of having enough magic that I'm kind of tolerating all the the passive writing and stuff, but it's right on the edge. Like that's why I'll set it down for days and I'm not thinking about it. I'm not like, it's not like one of those books where I can't wait to get back to it. Like Mark Lawrence, there's something in the way he writes that is like just right for me.
Right.
I don't edit him while I'm reading his stuff, which is perfect. That's what I want. Anna Smith Spark, she's the same. Like, I mean, for one, like, how would you edit that? Like, it's,
is it because they're similar to you, or is it because I think with Anna Smith Spark for you, she's so different than anything?
Yeah, no, I think they're both radically different writers from myself. Like, Mark's prose is nothing like the way I write.
Right.
No, Mark. Yeah. Let me just throw my 2 cents in real quick here.
Yeah.
Mark is, at least for me, Mark is just so clean. His prose is, God, it's almost like it's been just washed and laundered, just thrown on the page.
Prose laundering. That's fantastic.
Yeah,
And,
except like his first drafts are like that. I beta read an early version, like book wasn't even finished yet, of a book that wouldn't burn, like 2 years ago or so, and it was just like picking up like one of his books that you'd actually purchased. Just like read through and like, fuck, God damn it, yeah. Like my stuff's not like that.
Yeah.
And Anna, I mean, Anna, her prose is poetry. How do you edit poetry? I mean, it's damn near impossible. If you've read Court of Broken Knives or anything like that, you go through that book and there are whole stanzas hidden in those paragraphs, and it's just like, holy shit, how does her editor's got to be twice as smart as she is.
Yeah, I remember. I can't remember what it was. I beta read A Woman of the Sword, I think the title is, for Anna, like ages and ages ago. And there was like one sentence that like caught me. I was like, Anna, the sentence is 100 words long. And her response was, fuck off. Like, all right, fair enough.
It's supposed to be that.
Yeah. I'm just like, yeah, okay.
Yeah. 100. Man, the balls on her. I love it.
Yeah, she's gonna say what she wants to say the way she wants to say it, and you're either along for the ride or fuck off.
Yeah, I feel like that is very much a lesson for all of us to an extent. We want to say it effectively, But if we're saying it and the message is working, then anyone who doesn't like it can back off, and we're going to keep writing.
Yeah, it kind of, it's like if you're good enough, you can get away with anything. Now I read Anna Smith Spark stuff and I'm like, yeah, I'm not that good. I can't do that. For me, I would be faking it.
Yeah.
And then I'd go back and insert a million periods and commas and
dashes.
Yeah. I was like, no, can't do it.
So then, how long? I kind of accidentally kicked off something that interests me. Would you say that you guys have been beta reading for very long for other people? Or is that something that came along later? Because you said you beta for Mark Lawrence and Anna, and is that something you've been doing all along as a publishing human?
No, it's incredibly rare.
Look at me.
I mean, a lot of people.
That makes me even more sorry.
A lot of people approach me, and I tend to be like, "No, I'm too busy."
Yeah.
But there are just certain people, like my favorite writers.
Yeah.
If one of my favorite writers is like, "Hey, can you read an early draft?" and I'm like, "Yeah."
Right.
Just I love being part of that process is really cool. But like the other, like 40 messages I get a week saying, "Hey, can you read my first draft of my novel?" It's like, no, I can't.
But now you charge for it, which is brilliant.
Yeah, well, yeah. Now I'm offering sort of a critique service, which is it's fun. It really forces you to think about the sort of like the mechanics of storytelling.
Are you as mean to them as you were to me?
Oh yeah. There's no pulling punches. There's just it's like cutting stuff apart and kind of going like, okay, but you got to explain why.
Yeah,
you can't just say this is a shitty sentence. Or
I tease, but I actually enjoyed how mean you were because it. I think we're just the same kind of crazy where it's like we want to know. I don't want you to spare my feelings. I want to know what's wrong with the book so that I can fix it. And so it came to a point where you were doing a similar thing to me as you had to Clayton, where like your only time to read for me was like 4 a.m. or something, and I would hear my phone going off, and I'm like, oh, yeah, okay. And then I would wake up to all these messages of this is shit, and I don't know why this is here, and you should kill more people, and I'd be like, yes, I agree. That's there because I want it to be there. No, I'm not going to kill that person. And then I knew how to fix the goddamn book. So I tease you about being mean, and sometimes I could see you like typing for a really long time, and then you would send like a really short message, and I was like,
yeah, that was like a long rant, deleted and rewritten more politely.
How many times has he written this? Yeah, anyway, I appreciated that. So, have you been able to beta Clayton? Or yeah, you have beta for me a couple of times.
Yeah, for Blackthorn, right?
Yeah, I've only made for a couple people. Mike's made it for me a couple of times. For the most part, though, that's what I always appreciated about you betaing. Both you and Mike doing beta work for me was that oppositional beta work was the fact that I could decide what was working and what I wanted to tell you guys to fuck off on. Because it was either you were either making a really insightful remark or you were telling me something that I wasn't going to budge on. And,
and I think that's important to know that, like, I knew, that you weren't going to take all of my advice, and hopefully I delivered it in such a way that you knew that our friendship wasn't reliant on you listening. And I find now as a beta reader, I will say in advance, like, I'm just going to say shit and you don't have to listen to me. It's okay if you don't. Because you know your story. But I find that doing that, just generally beta reading as a writer, has made me a better writer. So I was wondering if you found the same, or if I just came into it so early into my process that it it changed me.
Yeah, I think I'd written like 10 or more books before I actually beta read for anyone. So it's made me more aware of some structural stuff.
Right.
So I think it's improved my first drafts.
Oh, okay.
Not necessarily my later drafts.
Well, but
Um,
that helps though, because it gives you
oh
a
yeah,
cleaner
like
start. Yeah.
the first draft, prose wise, not so much story wise, of what I'm working on now, it's pretty fucking close to what the end thing will be.
Yeah.
Now there are story aspects where I realize I'd fuck shit up, like, near the end. So like, I know I'm gonna have to go back and fix a pile of stuff.
Yeah.
But that it's not because it's written shittily. It's more like
You missed some big.
I miss things. Yeah.
Yeah, that trap.
Hopefully it's not
Yeah,
shit.
we'll see once you pass it to beta readers. So there we go. That puts us once again a little bit long this time. We're gonna have to trim out all of Clayton's parts.
I get that a lot.
It's because you're too interesting. You're making us look bad.
Yes, I'm sure that's the reason.
Well, this is going to be the last recording, so this time I really am going to thank you very genuinely for jumping on this with us kind of before this even launched, so you don't even know if this is going to help your career or not, or we could be just losers milking you for content. It was really good to talk to you, and thanks for coming.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
Yeah. And we'll see everybody on the next episode.
Later.
Ciao.